Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be comparing the specs of some of the top AV receivers on the market, and hopefully after watching, you'll be able to make a well-informed decision on which receiver is right for you right after the intro. Every year, manufacturers come out with new products loaded with new features that are meant to enhance the product, make life easier, or just make the product more desirable to own. When it comes to receivers, there's no difference. Companies are always competing with one another to offer the latest and greatest in hopes you'll choose their receiver over the others. This competition between companies is great for consumers because usually it results in a much more feature-rich product at a very affordable price point. The downside of this becomes very evident when trying to compare all the features. In order to make an educated decision on which one best fits your needs and situation, this task can quickly become frustrating and overwhelming. So we decided to do the hard work for you by categorizing all the features we feel are the most relevant or useful, and by using a number rating system to show which receiver has the most available options. Just be aware we couldn't include all the features these receivers offer simply because it would have made the charts far too massive and time-consuming to sort through them all. Also, we'll put timestamps in for each one of the 3 different levels of receivers we're going to talk about. That way, if you're only interested in mid-range receivers, you can just go right there. Alright, so now it's time to pick the receivers we want to compare. To do this, we started by selecting 4 popular brands that seem to get asked about a lot on forums and social media platforms we belong to. The brands we chose are Denon, Marantz, Yamaha, and Onkyo. And yeah, we know there's a lot of other brands available, but for the same reason we had to limit the amount of features we listed, we also had to limit the number of brands in the comparison. So if you don't see your favorite brand here, it's not because of any bias we have against them. Alright, with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at the entry-level receiver chart. All of the receivers shown in the entry-level category are priced between $0 and $1,000, and we've added a yellow color to these to indicate that they're not scored. This will remain consistent throughout all the charts, so if you see yellow, you'll know it's a category we decided not to score. And just in case you're wondering why we decided not to score the price, we decided that it's all going to be dependent on your budget, and if you want, you can even use it as a tiebreaker to help choose one receiver over the other. The models we chose for the entry-level category are the Denon AVR X2700H, the Marantz NR1711, the Yamaha RX V6A, and finally the Onkyo TX RZ740. Whenever possible, we chose the latest 2020 models, and we'll mention which ones these are as we go along. So, in this category, the only one that isn't a 2020 model is the Onkyo. Now, as you can see, we have a lot of different colors in the graph. Green indicates that the receiver gained a point in that category, and red indicates that it didn't. So, looking at the first scored row in the table, watts per channel, you can see that both the Onkyo and the Yamaha scored a point for their 100 watts per channel, while the Denon and Marantz didn't. Next, for the number of amplified channels. The Onkyo is the clear winner here with the ability to amplify 9 channels, which could get you a 5.2.4 Atmos surround system right out of the box, which I have to admit is pretty impressive for a receiver at this price point. In the pre-outs category, Onkyo wins again. It's the only receiver in this category that can do a proper 7.2.4 setup. That's 11 channels of processing with an external amp. In the audio formats category, they all received 1 point, which is pretty much a tie across the entire board. Now for room correction. This is another category that we decided not to score because every implementation of room correction has its own pluses and minuses. And honestly, we don't even use it ourselves. So we felt this would be another great category that you could use as a tiebreaker. Next, resolution. As you can see, Denon, Marantz, and Yamaha all get a point here for 8K 60Hz pass-through support, as well as 8K upscaling, while the Onkyo shows its age, only supporting 4K at 60 Hz. And for the number of HDMI ports, the Onkyo gets another point for having 7 inputs, one of which is in the front, and 2 HDMI outputs. Alright, now for HDMI ARC support. Denon, Marantz, and Yamaha all receive a point for their eARC support, but nothing goes to the Onkyo, which only has regular ARC. This is kind of disappointing for the Onkyo because it's a very desirable feature, but as we mentioned, it's not as new of a model. Another important category is the supported HDCP version of the receiver. And just like the ARC support, the Onkyo falls behind as it only offers HDCP 2.2, so you might have to upgrade to watch 8K content in the future. This won't be an issue with other receivers that have HDCP 2.3 right out of the box, which is the most current version. In the HDR support category, the Denon and Marantz are identical, with Dolby Vision, HDR10+, Dynamic HDR, and HLG support. The Yamaha didn't score a point here because it lacks Dynamic HDR support, and the Onkyo doesn't have that, nor does it have HDR10+. Now, in the IMAX Enhanced category, we see another strange turn of events. The Onkyo has it, but none of the receivers in our entry-level lineup have it, so another point goes to the Onkyo. Now, on to variable refresh rate support, which dynamically changes the refresh rate of the display to match the refresh rate of whatever game you're playing to reduce tearing and stuttering. The Denon, Marantz, and Yamaha all score a point here, with the Onkyo again showing its age. Next, auto low latency mode. This is another gaming related feature which will tell your display to automatically go into its own low latency gaming mode when you start playing a game. Again, all the receivers except for the Onkyo have it. As far as wireless connectivity, they all receive a point for supporting the same services. And digital music support. Strangely, the Onkyo supports more formats than the rest, up to DSD-256. Finally, for the weight. As you can see, they're all yellow, meaning we decided not to score this category, but the Onkyo is the heaviest, coming in at 23.3 pounds. And that leaves us with the final scores. And trust me, we didn't plan the results to come out this way, but they all managed to score 8 points, so we ended up with a 4-way tie. So if you're looking at this, what we recommend you do is pick out the features that are most important to you at the price that fits your budget and let that guide your decision. Now, obviously, one thing that's going to fall on your shoulders is to decide which one of these sounds best to you. To do that, you're going to either have to try to audition one of them at a store or make sure you purchase from an online dealer that has a good return policy, because we just don't have the resources to adequately test every one of these for their sound quality. Alright, that finishes up the entry level. Now let's get started on the mid-range category. All of the receivers in this category are priced between $1,000 to $2,500. And here we have the Denon AVR X6700H, the Marantz SR7015, the Yamaha RX 2080, and the Onkyo TX RZ 1100. And we want to mention here that both the Yamaha and the Onkyo haven't released their newest models as of the making of this video. Starting at the watts per channel category, the Marantz falls short at only 125 watts per channel, while all the rest tie at 140 watts per channel. For the number of amplified channels category, the Denon wins with a full 11 channels of amplification built right in. Next, pre-outs. And here the Denon again is a clear winner, giving you the ability to set up a full 13.2 channel surround sound when used with an external 2-channel amplifier. And for supported audio formats, the Denon wins again, notably being the only one that has support for DTS-X Pro. The Denon and the Marantz both feature Aura 3D as well, which is a nice addition. And room correction is yellow, so as we mentioned earlier, it won't be scored, so let's move on to resolution. And here we see a Denon and Marantz victory, having support for 8K at 60 Hz, while both the Yamaha and the Onkyo fall behind because of their age. Next, for HDMI inputs and outputs, the Denon and Marantz both score a point here as well, for both having 8 inputs and 3 outputs. As for ARC support, here we see that the Onkyo is the only one that doesn't support eARC, while all the others do. In the HDCP category, the Onkyo falls behind again, a lot like their entry-level offering did, only having support for HDCP 2.2, while all the others have support for HDCP 2.3. As far as HDR support goes, Marantz and Denon both come out on top, with the Yamaha and the Onkyo slightly lacking in this category. Now for IMAX Enhanced. It's the same story as before, with only the Marantz and Denon feature in it. It's the same thing for both variable refresh rate support and auto low latency mode. The Denon and Marantz both have it, while the other two don't. And for wireless connectivity, the Marantz takes the point, having a few more supported services than the others. And for digital music playback, the Onkyo receives its second point in the entire mid-range comparison. It also ends up being the heaviest at 43 pounds. So, looking at the final scores, here you can obviously see that the Yamaha and Onkyo are at a severe disadvantage for being slightly older and not having the latest features. Despite their low scores, however, that's not to say that they're bad receivers by any means. They just don't have a lot of features relative to the Marantz and Denon receivers that we also showed. And as we mentioned with the entry-level category, it's going to be up to you to decide which features are most important to you at the price point that fits your budget. Alright, with the mid-range category out of the way, it's time to take a look at the high-end category of the receivers. Starting with the Denon AVR A110, the Marantz SR8015, the Yamaha RX3080, and the Onkyo TX R3100. The price range for this category is $2,000 plus. Now we know this crosses over into the mid-range, which went up to $2,500, but we had to do this because the highest end Yamaha receiver, the RXA3080, comes in at $2,199. Starting with the watts per channel category, both the Denon and Yamaha score a point for 150 watts, while the Marantz and Onkyo fall behind at only 140 watts per channel. For the number of amplified channels, the high-end Denon is the only one that scores a point for having 13 amplified channels built right in. And it's the same for pre-outs. The Denon allows you to connect 13 channels of amplification and run it in preamp mode, which completely shuts off the internal amps to give you a cleaner sound. As for audio formats, both the Denon and Marantz score a point for supporting pretty much every major spatial audio format you could need. And here, again, room correction isn't graded, so you can decide what's best. Both the Denon and Marantz have Odyssey Multi-EQ XT32 built in. In the resolution category, both the Denon and Marantz score another point with 8K 60Hz support. The same goes for the number of HDMI ports, 8 inputs and 3 outputs on both the Marantz and the Denon. The Marantz, Yamaha, and Denon all support HDMI eARC, while the Onkyo only supports regular HDMI ARC, which really shows its age again. And with the reoccurring theme of the Onkyo showing its age, it only supports HDCP 2.2, while all the others support HDCP 2.3. Next, for HDR support, IMAX Enhanced certification, variable refresh rate support, and auto low latency mode, the Denon and Marantz receivers both score points in these categories, leaving the others behind. For wireless connectivity, the Denon seems to support the most services, so it gets a point in this category. And finally, for digital music playback, the Onkyo gets another unexpected win, notably for having support for DSD files up to 11.2 MHz. And again, while it isn't scored, the Denon is the heaviest receiver at 51.4 pounds. That leaves us with our final score of 13 points for the Denon, 9 for the Marantz, 3 for the Yamaha, and just a single point for the Onkyo. Now, this would appear like the Denon is a clear winner. That is until you consider the price. And this is the exact reason we didn't include price in our scoring, because there's such a difference in the cost between these receivers. You basically just trade features for affordability. So this is where you have to make the final call and decide whether the features are worth it. Or do you go with a more affordable receiver that has less features? Some people would rather go this route because technology is changing so fast that they might want to upgrade in 3 or 4 years. But on the other hand, if you buy one of the more expensive receivers, you could go a lot longer without an upgrade, so the choice is obviously up to you and your budget. For example, the Yamaha receivers were consistently the most affordable receivers in our lineups, but the mid-range and high-end models both lacked many of the features that the Denon and Marantz models had. And again, as we mentioned before, this is because Yamaha and Onkyo just haven't released their newest receivers yet. But when they do, we'll make sure to update this video. Alright guys, so hopefully this information will make your next receiver purchase just that much easier. That was the goal we set out to achieve when making this video. If you enjoyed this video, let us know by liking and subscribing. Or, if you just feel like we totally missed the mark on this one, let us know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, have an awesome day.